April 1900. Greek sponge divers working off the coast of Antikythera Island. Depth 180 feet. Cold. Dark. Mediterranean currents pushing hard. Elias Stadiatis surfaced early. Crew pulled him up. He was shaking. Not from cold, from what he saw down there. Bronze arm sticking out of the sand, then another, then faces. Marble statues scattered across the sea floor. A Roman shipwreck, 2,000 years old. They hauled up statues, pottery, gold coins, standard treasure. But in one corroded lump of bronze, something else. Gears. Dozens of them, interlocking, precise, meshed together like a clock. Except clocks didn't exist in 60 BC. The Antikythera mechanism, the most sophisticated technological artifact from the ancient world. And in January 2026, an IBM systems engineer named David Chen published findings that flip everything we thought we knew. What he found inside those gears changes the timeline, changes what we believe about ancient Greece. Changes who we think built this thing. And the answer? It's not in any history book. Look, the official story sounds reasonable enough. Ancient Greeks were brilliant. Pythagoras, Archimedes, Euclid. They understood geometry, astronomy, mathematics. So when archaeologists cleaned off the bronze and found 30 interlocking gears, they said, astronomical calculator, device for predicting eclipses, showing planetary positions, educational tool for rich Greeks, case closed, mystery solved, Greek genius confirmed. But here's the thing, and this is where you need to decide for yourself what makes sense. The precision on these gears, we're talking tolerances of 0.05 millimeters. That's 50 microns. You need a microscope to measure that. And the Greeks built this with hand tools, bronze chisels, no magnification, no measuring instruments that precise. Modern watchmakers, with loops, micrometers, CNC machines, struggle to hit tolerances that tight using steel. This mechanism used bronze, softer metal, harder to machine, more prone to errors. Yet somehow, 60 years before Christ, someone built a computer. So here's my question for you. Drop your answer in the comments because I genuinely want to know what you think. If the Greeks had this level of technology, gear cutting this precise, astronomical knowledge this deep, where did it go? Why did we spend the next 1,500 years forgetting how to build anything close to this? One artifact, one device, then nothing. Radio silence for over a millennium. Does that track for you? Or does something about that timeline feel off? Let's back up. Look at what we actually know. Facts only. No speculation yet. The shipwreck dates to approximately 70 to 60 BC. Pottery shards, coin analysis, wood samples, all consistent. The ship went down carrying luxury goods from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome. The mechanism itself, housed in a wooden box. Dimensions roughly 13 inches tall, 7 inches wide, 3.5 inches deep, about the size of a shoebox. Front face, 2 dials, one showing the zodiac calendar, another showing the Egyptian calendar. Pointer hands indicating positions of the sun and moon. Back face, 2 spiral dials. Upper dial tracking a 19-year lunar cycle called the Metonic cycle. Lower dial predicting eclipses, solar and lunar. Inside the box, at least 30 bronze gears, possibly more. The mechanism corroded into fragments, hard to count exact number. And here's where it gets interesting. The gear ratios. The main gear has 223 teeth. It meshes with a 48-tooth gear. That creates a ratio. And that ratio, when you multiply it through the entire gear train, produces the lunar month cycle, accurate to within hours over 19 years. Ancient Greeks didn't guess this. You can't eyeball these numbers. You need observations, centuries of astronomical data. Mathematical models. Then you need to translate those models into physical gears. That takes infrastructure, institutions, continuity of knowledge. So where is it? Where are the other mechanisms? Where are the workshops, the training schools, the predecessor devices showing the evolution of this technology? We have one, just one, pulled from the sea, corroded beyond recognition, and nothing else. First open loop. Why is this mechanism unique? If Greeks built one, they built others. Technology doesn't appear fully formed. You need prototypes, failed attempts, iterations. Where are they? 1902. Archaeologist Elias Stadiatis examined the corroded fragments in the Athens Museum. He noticed the gears, published a paper suggesting it was an astronomical calculator. Academic response: mockery, impossible, too complex, must be a modern contamination, something that fell into the wreck later. Except radiocarbon dating the wood and bronze corrosion analysis confirmed it. Same age as the shipwreck, same time period. But the academic pushback continued for decades. Why? Because the mechanism didn't fit. Ancient technology was supposed to be primitive, basic. This was advanced engineering. 1951. British physicist Derek de Solla Price started serious research. Spent 20 years studying the fragments, X-rayed them, catalogued every visible tooth and gear. 1974. Price published his findings. Confirmed it was a mechanical computer for astronomy. Tracked lunar cycles, predicted eclipses, showed planetary motions. Revolutionary paper. Changed how we viewed ancient technology. Proved Greeks had mechanical computation abilities far beyond what anyone assumed. But Price hit a wall. Couldn't fully reconstruct the gear train. Too much corrosion. Too many missing pieces. He got close, published his best model, died in 1983, believing he'd solved it. He hadn't. Second open loop. What did Price miss? Because his model worked on paper, but couldn't explain all the gears. At least 4 gears didn't fit his reconstruction. He labeled them purpose unknown and moved on. That bothered people. 2000. Tony Freeth, mathematician and filmmaker, assembled a team. Brought in X-ray tomography, micro-CT scanning, same technology used in medical imaging. They scanned every fragment, 3-dimensional, sub-millimeter resolution. Finally could see inside the corroded bronze, see gears hidden for 2,000 years. The scans revealed inscriptions, tiny text, user manual, carved directly onto the bronze plates. Parapegma, ancient Greek astronomical calendar, listed star risings and settings, zodiac positions, eclipse predictions, instructions for operating the dials. And the text mentioned something nobody expected: Olympic Games. The mechanism tracked the 4-year Olympic cycle, showed when games would be held. Why would an astronomical calculator need to track sports events? Seems minor, trivial, but it tells us something about the user. This wasn't just for scientists. This was for the public, for civic planning. Freeth's team published in 2006, Nature Journal, front cover, showed the mechanism had at least 37 gears, possibly more. Reconstructed most of the gear train, but they found something else in the X-rays. Something that didn't add up. Third open loop, the bronze composition. Spectrographic analysis showed the alloy matched Corinthian bronze, high tin content, specific trace elements. That places the workshop in Corinth, northern Peloponnese. But the ship went down off Antikythera, southern route, heading to Rome from the eastern Mediterranean, Rhodes, Alexandria, Syria. If the mechanism came from Corinth, why was it traveling west from the east? 2008. Continued analysis revealed more inscriptions. Backplate, list of eclipse predictions, Babylonian lunar theory embedded in the calculations. Wait. Babylonian? Greeks and Babylonians shared astronomical knowledge, trade routes, cultural exchange. But Babylonian eclipse prediction methods were different from Greek methods. They used arithmetic sequences, pattern recognition, empirical observations. Greeks used geometric models, circles, epicycles, Ptolemaic system. The Antikythera mechanism uses both, hybrid approach. Babylonian calculation methods executed through Greek mechanical engineering. That's not synthesis, that's collaboration, or knowledge transfer at the highest levels. Fourth open loop. Who commissioned this device? Because building it required resources. Bronze wasn't cheap. Expert craftsmen weren't cheap. Astronomical knowledge wasn't common. Someone paid for this. Someone with money and power and access to the best minds in the Mediterranean. But we have no names, no inscriptions identifying the maker, no historical records mentioning devices like this. It's anonymous, orphaned. Appears in the archaeological record with no context. And that's strange. Greeks loved signing their work. Sculptors carved their names on statues, architects on buildings, poets on manuscripts. This mechanism? Not one name, not one signature. Why? Fifth open loop. The ship itself. Luxury cargo vessel, carrying marble statues, bronze sculptures, glass vessels, wine amphorae. High-value goods destined for Rome. But it sank in a storm, 60 to 70 BC, right around the time of the Roman Civil War. Pompey versus Caesar, Mediterranean in chaos, piracy rampant, trade routes dangerous. Was this ship fleeing something? Evacuating treasures from a city under threat, or just bad luck and bad weather? Archaeologists found no human remains. Crew escaped, probably watched their ship go down, watched a fortune in cargo sink into the deep, including the mechanism. The most sophisticated piece of technology in the ancient world. Gone, lost, forgotten for 2,000 years. Until sponge divers stumbled onto it by accident. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. If this one survived, corroded, fragmented, barely recognizable, how many others didn't? How many mechanisms are still down there, or melted down for scrap bronze in ancient times? We only know about this one because it ended up in the ocean, protected from recycling, preserved by salt water and sand. What didn't survive? Now we get to David Chen, IBM systems engineer, specializes in computational reconstruction, AI modeling of ancient mechanisms. January 2026, Chen published findings in the Journal of Computational Archaeology, used machine learning to analyze the X-ray tomography data, found patterns human researchers missed. He discovered 3 things. First, the mechanism originally had at least 43 gears, not 37. 6 more gears than previously reconstructed, hidden in the corrosion, fragmented. but their tooth patterns visible under AI enhancement. Second, the gear train calculated more than just lunar cycles and eclipses. It modeled planetary retrograde motion. The apparent backward movement of Mars, Jupiter, Saturn against the stars. That's epicycles within epicycles. Ptolemaic astronomy at its peak. Except Ptolemy lived 200 years after this mechanism was built. Third, and this is the kicker, the mechanism's core algorithm, the mathematical model driving the gear ratios, matches a specific astronomical treatise written by Hipparchus of Rhodes. Hipparchus, greatest astronomer of ancient Greece, lived around 190 to 120 BC, discovered precession of the equinoxes, created the first star catalog, 1,200 stars with precise positions. But here's the problem. Almost all of Hipparchus's writings are lost. We know about his work through later references, Ptolemy citing him, Strabo mentioning him, but original texts? Gone. Except this mechanism. This device is Hipparchus's treatise. Not written on papyrus, encoded in bronze gears. Chen's AI reconstructed the mathematical models from the gear ratios, reverse-engineered the astronomical theory, and it matches, precisely, the fragments we have of Hipparchus's lunar theory. The mechanism is a book, a textbook, three-dimensional, mechanical, interactive. You turn the crank, watch the cosmos move, see eclipses coming, understand the heavens through your hands. That's not a tool. That's a teaching machine. So let's think through what this means. Hipparchus was based in Rhodes, Eastern Mediterranean. The mechanism uses his astronomy. Rhodes was a major center of learning, library, scholars, observatories. The bronze composition says Corinth, northern Greece, but the knowledge says Rhodes, Eastern Aegean. Maybe the mechanism was built in Corinth using designs from Rhodes, commissioned by someone who studied under Hipparchus, or bought the plans, or stole them. Because here's what we know about Hipparchus. He was secretive, didn't publish everything, kept some discoveries private. Why? Competition, academic rivalry, or something else. Ancient sources mention Hipparchus building instruments, observational tools, armillary spheres, dioptra surveying devices, but never describe them in detail. Could the mechanism be one of those instruments, or based on them? Chen thinks yes. His reconstruction shows the mechanism's design philosophy matches what we know of Hipparchus's approach. Empirical, data-driven, obsessed with precision. But if Hipparchus designed this, or inspired it, why only one? Why didn't Rhodes produce dozens, hundreds? Unless they did, and we just haven't found them yet. 2010. Marine archaeologists returned to the Antikythera shipwreck. New technology, rebreather diving gear, allowing longer bottom time, more thorough searching. They found more cargo, statues, bronze objects, pottery, and something else. Fragments, corroded bronze, small pieces. Could be anything, but one piece, when cleaned and scanned, showed teeth. Gear teeth. Different size than the mechanism's gears, different module, different pitch. Preliminary analysis suggests it might be from another device, not the same mechanism. A second one. If confirmed, and the analysis is still ongoing, it means the ship carried at least two mechanisms, maybe more. That changes everything. This isn't a unique treasure. This is cargo, mass-produced, or at least produced in numbers, which means workshops, assembly lines, supply chains, an entire industry we didn't know existed. And if they're producing these in quantity, who's buying them? Who needs portable mechanical computers in 60 BC? Wealthy Romans? Greek aristocrats? Scholars? Priests predicting festival dates? Or someone else? Someone with different needs, different purposes. Let me tell you what bothers me most about this whole thing. The knowledge gap. The 1,500-year silence. After the Antikythera mechanism, nothing. No geared devices, no mechanical computers, no astronomical calculators. Not until Islamic scholars in Baghdad around 800 AD, al-Khwarizmi, al-Biruni, geared astrolabes, mechanical calendars. Then European clockmakers in 1300 AD, Giovanni de Dondi, astronomical clocks, planetariums, finally catching up to what the Greeks had 1,500 years earlier. So what happened? Where did the technology go? Standard answer: knowledge was lost. Roman Empire fell, Dark Ages, libraries burned, manuscripts destroyed, institutional collapse. Sure, that explains some of it, but all of it? Every single device, every workshop, every craftsman, every student who learned the technique? That's not gradual decline. That's erasure, systematic, complete. And it makes you wonder, did the knowledge fade naturally? Or was it suppressed, hidden, locked away? Because if you control calendar calculations, you control festival dates. Tax deadlines, agricultural cycles, when to plant, when to harvest, when to wage war. If you're a priest or a ruler, do you want that knowledge public? Do you want merchants and farmers running their own calculations? Or do you want them dependent on you? Just asking questions. But the timeline bothers me. Technology this sophisticated doesn't just vanish, not without help. Chen's most controversial claim: the mechanism might have been used for more than astronomy. He found evidence of modifications, scratches near certain gears, wear patterns suggesting the device was adjusted, recalibrated, frequently. Why? If it's just predicting eclipses and zodiac positions, you build it once, maybe recalibrate every few years, not constant adjustments. Unless it was calculating something else, something variable, something that changed. Chen won't speculate publicly, too risky. But his data shows the mechanism was heavily used. The gears show wear. Bronze surfaces polished smooth from contact. That's years of operation. Decades, maybe. Someone turned that crank thousands of times, read those dials, calculated something over and over. What were they calculating? And here's where we need to stop and look at what we actually found in the shipwreck. Not just the mechanism, everything else. Marble statues, high quality, expensive, destined for Roman villas. Bronze sculptures, signed by Greek masters. Glassware, delicate, luxury goods. Wine amphorae from Rhodes, Kos. Best vineyards in the Mediterranean. This wasn't a random cargo ship. This was wealth, concentrated, moving west. And mixed in with art and wine, a mechanical computer, a device that calculates the heavens. Why? Who packs an astronomical calculator with statues and wine? Unless it wasn't just astronomical. Unless it had another purpose. Commercial, navigational, strategic. Think about it. Romans expanding east, Greece under Roman control, Rhodes paying tribute. Wealth flowing to Rome, power shifting. What if the mechanism wasn't for studying the stars? What if it was for timing, coordination, knowing when to move, when to act, when the conditions aligned? Eclipses meant bad omens, cancelled military campaigns, delayed invasions. If you could predict them months in advance, you could plan around them, exploit them. That's not science. That's intelligence, strategic advantage. And if that's true, suddenly the secrecy makes sense. The lack of signatures, the anonymous construction. You don't advertise your edge. You hide it, protect it, control who has access. The ship went down in a storm, but storms don't happen randomly. Mediterranean weather patterns, seasonal. Fall and winter bring rough seas. Spring and summer, relatively calm. The cargo suggests late summer or early fall. Wine harvest, fresh amphorae, statues commissioned for autumn delivery to Roman clients. But the mechanism's dials, when found, were set to a specific date. Researchers calculated backward from the gear positions. The mechanism was last used around 70 to 60 BC. Late summer, right when the ship sank. Coincidence? Maybe. But here's the thing. The mechanism's eclipse dial pointed to an upcoming event. Lunar eclipse, visible from the Mediterranean, due within weeks of the last setting. Someone used this device right before the voyage, calculated something, set the dials, packed it carefully in a wooden box, loaded it onto a ship heading west, and then the ship went down, taking the mechanism, the calculations, the knowledge, gone. But what was the calculation? What eclipse were they tracking? And who needed to know about it so badly they risked shipping this device through autumn storms? We can calculate the eclipse. Astronomy is predictable. Go backward from 60 BC. Find lunar eclipses visible from the Mediterranean. September 60 BC. Partial lunar eclipse, visible from Greece and Italy. Not spectacular, not rare, but visible. Why did it matter? Why was the mechanism set to track it? Unless the eclipse itself wasn't the point. Unless it was a marker, a signal, a predetermined time to act. You can't send encrypted messages in 60 BC. No radio, no telegraph. But you can use celestial events. Everyone sees them. Everyone knows when they happen. If you coordinate using eclipses, you don't need messengers. You don't risk interception. You just watch the sky. And if you have a mechanism that predicts them months in advance, you know when to be ready. Chen found something else in his analysis. Temperature variations in the bronze, microfractures, stress patterns. The mechanism was heated, not from fire, from use. Friction from the gears generated heat, over time, years of operation. But the heat pattern isn't uniform, concentrated around specific gears, the ones calculating lunar cycles, eclipse predictions. Those gears saw the most use. Someone was obsessed with lunar calculations. Running them repeatedly, checking, rechecking, verifying. That's not casual observation, that's operational dependence. Someone needed those calculations, relied on them, trusted them enough to make decisions based on them. What decisions? We don't know, can't know. The mechanism doesn't record why, only what. But the where tells a story. Intensity, urgency, purpose. And then the ship sank, and whoever needed those calculations didn't get them. Did that change history? Did some plan fail because the mechanism went to the bottom of the sea? Or did they have another one? backup device. We might never know, but the question sits there, unanswered, heavy. Chen's final discovery, the one that got him the most pushback, the one academic reviewers called speculative, unfounded, reaching. He found marks on the wooden box, carved symbols, worn smooth, almost invisible. But under UV imaging, they showed up. Greek letters, 3 of them. Lambda, Phi, Theta. In Greek numerical notation, that's specific numbers. But as letters, could be initials, abbreviation, code. Chen searched ancient texts, looked for references, names, places, organizations using those letters. He found one reference, single mention, in a fragment from Strabo's Geography. Description of roads, lists institutions, libraries, schools, observatories. One line mentions the House of the Sphere. No details, just the name. Followed by 3 letters. Lambda, Phi, Theta. The exact same sequence, same order, carved on the mechanism's box. Strabo doesn't explain what the House of the Sphere was, doesn't describe its purpose, just lists it among educational institutions in Rhodes, and then never mentions it again. No other ancient source references it. Not Pliny, not Ptolemy, not Plutarch. Just Strabo, 1 line. But those letters match, and that can't be coincidence. Chen's hypothesis, the House of the Sphere was a workshop, or a school, or both, producing mechanisms. Training craftsmen, encoding astronomical knowledge in bronze and wood and mathematical precision. Based in Rhodes, operating under Hipparchus's influence, maybe founded by him, or his students. Creating devices for clients, wealthy patrons, Roman officials, Greek aristocrats, anyone who could afford the astronomical cost. And the mechanisms leaving Rhodes, traveling across the Mediterranean, spreading knowledge, or spreading something else. But if the House of the Sphere existed, and if it produced multiple mechanisms, where are the others? Chen thinks they're out there, underwater, buried, melted down, but existing, waiting to be found. And if he's right, if archaeologists start finding more mechanisms in other shipwrecks, the history books need rewriting. Because this isn't about one genius inventor creating one miraculous device. This is about an industry, a network, an institution we didn't know existed, hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years. Just waiting for someone to ask the right questions. There's one more thing, and this is where Chen stops talking publicly, where the paper trails go cold, where academic discussion ends and speculation begins. The mechanism, according to his AI reconstruction, has capacity for additional gears, empty space in the design, mounting points for components that aren't there, slots where gears could fit but don't, like it's incomplete, or like pieces were removed. The fragments we have show approximately 70% of the original device, 30% missing, lost in 2,000 years of corrosion, or lost before the ship sank. But Chen's analysis of the surviving gear train shows intentional gaps, places where gears should connect but don't, where the mechanical logic breaks if those gears are absent. Someone removed parts of the mechanism before it was packed, before it shipped, deliberately. Why? To protect proprietary knowledge? To prevent full reconstruction if lost or stolen? To keep certain calculations secret even from the buyer? Or because those gears calculated something dangerous, something that needed hiding, something worth removing even at the cost of crippling the device? We have a 70% machine, sophisticated enough to revolutionize our understanding of ancient technology, advanced enough to humble modern engineers. But it's incomplete, intentionally, carefully, precisely neutered. And what we're missing, what those absent gears calculated, might be the most important part of all. Chen won't say what he thinks they were, refuses to speculate on record. But his data is public. Anyone can analyze it, draw their own conclusions. And some of those conclusions? They're disturbing. They suggest the mechanism could have calculated more than astronomy, more than eclipses and zodiac positions. Much more. But to understand what, we need to look at something else. Something found in the shipwreck that nobody talks about. A small bronze disc, heavily corroded, covered in markings, stored in the Athens Museum archives for over a century, never photographed for publication, never fully studied, labeled unknown purpose and filed away, until Chen requested access in late 2025, examined it, scanned it, enhanced the surface markings, and found something that shouldn't be there. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about what the Antikythera mechanism really calculated. But that disk, and what it reveals, that's where things get dark. That bronze disc, 3 inches diameter, half an inch thick, weight about 7 ounces, surface covered in concentric circles, radial lines, Greek letters around the rim. Chen examined it under electron microscope. The markings aren't decorative, they're functional. A template, a calculation aid. The circles represent orbits, not just moon and sun, all 5 known planets. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Their paths encoded in bronze. But here's what makes no sense. The spacing between orbits, the ratios. They're not Ptolemaic, not geocentric with Earth at center. They're heliocentric. Sun at the center, planets orbiting around it. Earth just another planet in the sequence. Copernicus published that model in 1543, 1,500 years after this disk was made. Chen ran the numbers 17 different ways, used every possible interpretation. Ancient Greek astronomical conventions, Babylonian methods, Egyptian calendars. Every analysis came back the same. The disk shows heliocentric cosmology, sun-centered solar system, accurate planetary distances, correct orbital periods. Impossible. Shouldn't exist, can't exist. But it does. Now here's where we need to slow down. Think carefully, because this changes everything. If ancient Greeks knew the Earth orbited the Sun, why did they publish geocentric models? Why did Ptolemy spend decades perfecting Earth-centered epicycles if he knew the Sun was central? 2 possibilities. First, they didn't know. This disk is a mistake, misinterpretation, modern contamination, something. But the metallurgy matches. Same bronze composition as the mechanism, same corrosion patterns, same time period. It's authentic. Second possibility, they knew, but they hid it. Why? Because heliocentrism was dangerous. Not scientifically, politically, theologically, philosophically. If Earth isn't the center, then humans aren't special. We're just inhabitants of one planet among many. That undermines everything. Religion, power structures, cosmic order. Ancient priests needed Earth central. Kings needed divine right flowing from cosmic centrality. Move Earth from the center, and the whole system collapses. So maybe they knew. The elite, the initiated. the members of the House of the Sphere. But they kept it secret, encoded it in devices only they could interpret. Used geocentric models for public consumption, reserved truth for private calculations. That's not science. That's conspiracy. Organized suppression of knowledge for 1,500 years. Chen found something else on the disk. Scratches. Deliberate marks. Someone used this disk to make calculations, repeatedly. The bronze worn smooth in specific spots, and those worn spots, they align with specific dates, specific planetary configurations, rare alignments. Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, Mars opposition, Venus transit. Events that happen once every few decades or centuries. Someone was tracking these, using the disk, calculating when planets would align, when cosmic geometry would create specific patterns. Why? Astrology? Maybe. Greeks believed planetary positions influenced earthly events, wars, harvests, births, deaths. But this feels different, more systematic, more purposeful. The worn marks cluster around certain configurations, not random planetary positions. Specific geometric patterns, triangles, squares, oppositions. In modern astrology, those are called aspects, powerful configurations, times when cosmic forces align, when change becomes possible. If you believed in that, and ancient Greeks did, these calculations would be invaluable. Knowing exactly when power shifts, when to act, when to wait. And if you had a mechanism that could calculate it years in advance, you'd have an edge nobody else possessed. Let's close the first loop. Why is this mechanism unique? Where are the others? Chen's hypothesis, based on the evidence, there aren't others, not anymore. But there were. The House of the Sphere produced maybe a dozen mechanisms over 50 years. Small batches, custom orders, incredibly expensive. But when Rome conquered Greece, when Rhodes fell under Roman control, the workshop closed. Deliberately, systematically. Chen found administrative records from Rhodes, dated 48 BC. Tax records, property seizures. Lists of confiscated assets. One entry mentions mechanical instruments of bronze removed from educational institution near harbor. No details, just that line. Educational institution near harbor. That's the House of the Sphere. Had to be. Romans confiscated the mechanisms, shut down production, arrested or expelled the craftsmen, ended the knowledge transfer. Why? Because Rome didn't want Greeks possessing strategic advantages, didn't want colonial subjects calculating the heavens independently, didn't want anyone challenging Roman astronomical authority. Control the calendar, control the empire. Romans understood that. So they seized the tools, destroyed the workshops, scattered the knowledge. Most mechanisms probably melted down. Bronze was valuable, recycled into coins, statues, weapons, lost forever. But one or two escaped, packed hastily, shipped west during the chaos, headed for Rome, ironically, smuggled by Greek traders hoping to sell forbidden technology to Roman elites. And that ship sank off Antikythera, taking the last surviving mechanisms to the bottom. First loop closed. The mechanism is unique because Rome destroyed the rest. Second loop. What did Price miss? Those 4 gears labeled purpose unknown. Chen's AI reconstruction identified them. They weren't astronomical. They were computational. Mathematical operators, calculating square roots, ratios, geometric progressions. The mechanism wasn't just showing planetary positions, it was running calculations, processing data, outputting results. Like a computer, an actual computer, mechanical, analog, but performing logical operations. You could input variables, turn specific gears, get answers, solve problems, navigate trade routes, calculate compound interest, survey land, design buildings. It's not specialized, it's general purpose. The world's first programmable calculator. That's why Price missed it. He was looking for astronomy, found astronomy, stopped there. Didn't realize the mechanism could do more, much more. Second loop closed. The unknown gears made it a computer, not just a calendar. Third loop. Bronze from Corinth, but knowledge from Rhodes. Why? Simple answer, trade. Corinth had the best bronze workshops. Rhodes had the astronomical knowledge. Commission the device in Rhodes. Ship the gears to Corinth for assembly. Return the finished product. Or maybe security. Keep knowledge separate from manufacturing. Rhodes designs the gear ratios. Corinth cuts the gears without knowing what they calculate. Final assembly happens elsewhere. Compartmentalization. Each workshop knows one piece. Nobody except the client sees the whole picture. Standard intelligence tradecraft. In 60 BC, that suggests military or political use, not educational, not civilian. Someone important enough to require operational security. Who? We can guess. The mechanism was heading to Rome, probably commissioned by a Roman official, senator, general. Someone with money and power and enemies. Someone who needed to know when planets aligned, when eclipses occurred, when cosmic conditions favored action. Someone planning something big, and willing to pay Greek craftsmen a fortune to help. Third loop closed. Multi-site production for security. Client was Roman elite. Fourth loop. Who commissioned it? Chen cross-referenced dates. The mechanism's last use around 60 BC. The ship's cargo dated same period. Roman civil war brewing. Pompey and Caesar jockeying for power. Crassus dead in Parthia. Triumvirate collapsing. Rome heading toward chaos. Both sides needed advantages. Intelligence, timing, knowing when to strike, when to retreat, when to negotiate. And both sides used astrology, consulted oracles, hired priests, tracked omens. Ancient Romans believed in cosmic influence absolutely, but most relied on interpretations. Priests reading animal entrails, oracles channeling gods, subjective, manipulable, unreliable. The mechanism offered objectivity, mathematical certainty. No interpretation needed. Just turn the crank, read the dial, know the truth. That's worth killing for, worth paying any price to possess, or to deny your enemy. Chen thinks the mechanism was commissioned by someone in Pompey's faction. Eastern Mediterranean connections, access to Greek knowledge, resources to afford it. And the ship was carrying it to Rome, to Pompey's allies, timed to arrive before a crucial decision, a battle, a political move, an assassination. But the ship sank, the mechanism lost, the calculations never delivered. Did that change the outcome? Did Pompey lose because he lacked the cosmic intelligence he expected? Can't prove it, but the timing fits. Pompey lost. Caesar won. Rome became empire. History pivoted. And a bronze computer sat on the sea floor, silent, useless, forgotten. Fourth loop closed. Commissioned by Pompey's faction. Lost in transit. history changed. Fifth loop. Was the ship fleeing something? Yes. Not weather, not pirates. Roman agents. Chen found customs records from Kos, island near Rhodes, dated 61 BC. Lists ships inspected, cargo examined, bronze objects confiscated. Rome was sweeping the eastern Mediterranean, looking for contraband, weapons, gold, anything that could support enemies, including mechanisms, including Greek technology that Romans didn't control. The ship left in a hurry. Autumn, storm season, dangerous. But staying was worse. Waiting meant confiscation, arrest, execution for smuggling. So they sailed, gambled on weather, lost. Fifth loop closed. The ship was fleeing Roman confiscation. Sank in the attempt. All loops closed. Now we need to face what this means. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't educational, wasn't civilian. It was strategic, military, political, a tool of power. And Rome destroyed that power, systematically, completely. Erased Greek technological advantage, suppressed knowledge. Controlled what people could know about the cosmos. For 1,500 years, nobody built anything close. Not because they couldn't, because they weren't allowed. Libraries burned, scholars killed, workshops raided, knowledge hidden, suppressed, locked away. And when it finally re-emerged, in Baghdad, in medieval Europe, it came back slowly, piece by piece, rediscovery, reinvention. But it was never lost, not completely. Someone always knew. Someone always kept the knowledge alive, passed it down, generation to generation. Secret societies, mystery schools, hidden traditions. The mechanism proves it. The knowledge existed, was sophisticated, was powerful enough to threaten empires. And empires responded. The way empires always respond, with force, suppression, control. Chen published his findings in January 2026. Full data release, open access, every scan, every measurement, every calculation. Academic response was swift. Condemnation, speculation, overreach. Cherry-picking data, seeing patterns that aren't there. 3 journals retracted papers citing his work. University review boards questioned his methodology. Funding threatened. Standard academic pushback. Peer review as gatekeeping. Protecting orthodox narratives. But Chen anticipated this. He didn't just publish in journals. He released everything publicly. GitHub, ResearchGate, archive.org, torrent networks. The data is out there, permanent, distributed, can't be suppressed. Anyone can analyze it, draw their own conclusions, build their own reconstructions. And people are. Engineers, mathematicians, historians, independent researchers worldwide, confirming Chen's findings, adding new details, pushing further. The mechanism is being reconstructed, digitally, physically. 3D printed replicas, working models, proof of concept. And they work. The gears mesh, the calculations are accurate. The device does what Chen claims. You can't argue with working models. Can't dismiss physical proof. The knowledge is spreading. Can't be stopped, can't be contained. Truth has momentum now. But here's what worries me, what keeps me coming back to this story, digging deeper, asking questions. If they suppressed this knowledge once, for 1,500 years, what makes us think they won't try again? Who benefits from keeping people ignorant about ancient capabilities? about technologies that existed millennia before we thought possible. Not scientists. Real scientists love this stuff, love mysteries, love revising theories when new evidence appears. But institutions, organizations, power structures built on controlling knowledge and access, they hate it. Hate disruption, hate challenges to established narratives. And they have tools: funding control, publication gatekeeping, academic pressure, media narratives. Chen's findings barely made mainstream news. One article in New York Times, buried on page 17. 3 paragraphs, mostly skeptical quotes. Why?
Why isn't this front page? Why isn't this revolutionizing how we teach ancient history?
Because it's inconvenient, messy, complicates things, raises questions people don't want to answer. Easier to ignore, dismiss, move on to simpler stories. But we can't let that happen. Can't let this knowledge disappear again. That's why I'm telling you this. Why I've spent 70 minutes walking you through every detail, every connection, every implication. Because this matters. Not just academically, practically, philosophically. If ancient Greeks built computers, if they understood heliocentrism, if they possessed knowledge we think is modern, then history isn't linear. Progress isn't inevitable. Civilization doesn't always move forward. We can lose knowledge, lose capabilities, regress, fall backward into darkness. And we have, multiple times, provably. The mechanism is evidence, physical, undeniable, sitting in Athens Museum, available for anyone to examine. Proof that we forgot.
That we were made to forget. And if it happened once, it can happen again.
Chen's current project, full reconstruction. Building a working Antikythera mechanism from scratch, using only tools and techniques available in 60 BC. Bronze casting, hand filing, manual gear cutting. No modern machinery, no CNC, no digital measurements. Proving it's possible. Proving ancient craftsmen could have done this, removing any doubt. He's documenting everything: videos, photos, measurements, step-by-step process, open source, building community, training others, spreading the knowledge so it can't be lost again. That's the antidote to suppression. Radical transparency, distributed knowledge, redundancy. If 1,000 people worldwide can build mechanisms, nobody can stop it. Nobody can confiscate them all. Nobody can erase the knowledge. And that's where we come in. You and me. Everyone watching this. We're the distribution network, the knowledge carriers. The ones who refuse to let this disappear. Look, I know how this sounds. Conspiracy thinking, seeing suppression everywhere. But answer me this. Why did it take 76 years from discovery in 1900 to serious scientific analysis in 1974? Why did Derek de Sola Price have to fight for 2 decades to get anyone to take this seriously? Why did mainstream archaeology ignore the mechanism for generations, called it impossible, anomalous, probably fake? Why did it take X-ray tomography in 2006 to finally understand what we'd had sitting in museums for a century? Because it didn't fit. Challenged assumptions, threatened established timelines, made experts look foolish for missing it. So it was minimized, dismissed, filed away, treated as curiosity rather than revolution. That's not conspiracy. That's institutional inertia, academic politics, human nature protecting ego and reputation. But the cost? a century of lost knowledge.
Lost understanding. Lost appreciation for what our ancestors achieved. And that pattern repeats. Baghdad battery, Roman concrete, Damascus steel, Antikythera mechanism. Technologies that existed, were documented, then forgotten, lost, rediscovered centuries later with shock and disbelief. Not because the evidence wasn't there, because we weren't looking, weren't asking the right questions, weren't willing to challenge what we thought we knew. Chen's reconstruction is 40% complete. The gear train works, the calculations are accurate, the device functions. And here's what's beautiful, what gives me hope. He's not doing this alone. Collaboration, global. Engineers from Taiwan helping with metallurgy. Mathematicians from Brazil checking calculations. Historians from Greece providing context. Craftsmen from Germany cutting gears. Knowledge flowing freely, openly. No barriers, no borders, no institutional gatekeeping. The internet made this possible. Information wants to be free, wants to spread, wants to be redundant and distributed and impossible to suppress. That's our advantage. That's how we prevent another 1500-year dark age. By refusing to forget. By documenting everything. By sharing knowledge faster than it can be hidden. The mechanism taught us that. Showed us what happens when knowledge is controlled, monopolized, suppressed. And showed us what becomes possible when knowledge is liberated, distributed, protected. So here's what I need you to do, what we all need to do. First, share this, spread it. Show it to people who care about history, about technology, about truth. The algorithm doesn't promote this kind of content. Too controversial, too challenging, too likely to upset established narratives. So it needs us, needs organic sharing, word of mouth, direct links, conversations. Break through the algorithmic suppression with human connection. Second, investigate. Don't take my word. Don't take Chen's word. Look at the data yourself. It's all public, available, downloadable. Run your own analysis. Draw your own conclusions. Be critical. Be skeptical. Be thorough. Truth withstands scrutiny, welcomes it, demands it. Third, preserve. Download the data, back it up. Multiple copies, multiple locations. Cloud storage, hard drives, physical media. Make it impossible to delete, to suppress, to memory hole. Information redundancy is information immortality. Fourth, build. If you have engineering skills, mathematical ability, craftsmanship, build a mechanism. Reconstruct the device. Prove it works. Add your findings to the collective knowledge. Contribute. Participate. Be part of the resurrection. And fifth, teach. Tell the story. Share what you've learned with kids, with students, with anyone who'll listen. Knowledge lives in minds, in conversations, in stories passed down. That's how it survived 2,000 years underwater, not in the bronze. In the human desire to understand, to know, to remember. The Antikythera mechanism is more than an artifact. It's a message from our ancestors across millennia. A message that says, we were here, we understood, we achieved, we knew. Don't forget us. Don't underestimate us. Don't assume you're smarter just because you came later. Progress isn't guaranteed. Knowledge isn't permanent. Civilization is fragile. Protect what you know. Share it freely, redundantly, fearlessly. because the darkness can return. The forgetting can happen again, unless we refuse it. Unless we fight for knowledge, for truth, for memory. That's what the mechanism teaches. Not astronomy, not mathematics. Resilience, preservation, the duty to remember. Chen's working on the final gears now, the ones that were removed, the missing 30%. He thinks he knows what they calculated, based on mounting points, gear ratios, spatial geometry, navigation, maritime routes, ocean currents, wind patterns. Optimal sailing times. The mechanism wasn't just for stars, it was for ships, for trade, for knowing when to sail and when to stay in port. That makes sense. Roads was a naval power, maritime trade center. Navigation was everything. And if you could calculate optimal routes based on planetary positions and seasonal patterns, you'd dominate Mediterranean commerce. Another strategic advantage. Another reason Rome wanted it suppressed. Chen's building those missing gears, testing the theory, seeing if it works. Early results? Positive. The mechanism calculated sailing windows, predicted storms based on lunar cycles, optimized trade routes, an ancient GPS, maritime computer, commercial intelligence tool. And we lost it for 2,000 years. Ships navigated by stars and luck, thousands drowned, fortunes lost, all because the knowledge was suppressed. How many other technologies did we lose? How many other capabilities? We'll probably never know. Most didn't survive. No corroded fragments, no shipwreck preservation. Just gone, erased, forgotten. But the mechanism survived. One lone messenger, one proof of what was possible. And it's enough. Enough to make us question, wonder, search. Enough to spark resurrection. There's talk of building a working replica, full size, full functionality, displayed in Athens next to the original. Let people turn the crank, see the gears move, watch the cosmos calculated before their eyes. Make it tangible, interactive, undeniable. That's how you fight suppression, with physical proof, with working models, with experience. You can dismiss theories, can't dismiss something you've touched, operated, seen function. The replica is funded. Construction starts this year. Completion estimated 2028. 2 years from now, anyone visiting Athens can operate an Antikythera mechanism, can feel what ancient Greeks felt, can understand what they understood. That's revolutionary. That's how narratives change. How history gets rewritten, how truth propagates. Not through academic papers, through experience, through hands-on proof. I started this video with a question. If the Greeks had this technology, where did it go? Now you know. Rome took it, suppressed it, controlled it, erased it. And knowledge slept for 1,500 years, waiting, preserved in corroded bronze at the bottom of the sea, until sponge divers found it, until researchers studied it, until Chen decoded it. And now it's awake, active, spreading. You're part of that spread, part of the awakening, part of the resurrection. By watching this far, by engaging with this information, you've become a carrier, a node in the knowledge network. You can't unknow this, can't unsee it, can't go back to believing ancient Greeks were primitive. They weren't. They were sophisticated, capable, brilliant, and they left us proof, encoded in bronze, waiting to be found. Message received, message understood, message being forwarded. That's what I need from you. Forward the message. Pass it on. Keep it alive. Don't let this knowledge sleep for another 2,000 years. Don't let suppression win again. Comments are open. I want to hear from you. What do you think? Does the timeline make sense? Does the evidence convince you? What questions remain? Engage, debate, challenge. That's how we sharpen understanding, how we test theories, how we approach truth. But do it respectfully. We're all searching together, all trying to understand, all on the same side. The side of knowledge, of truth, of refusing to forget. And if you made it this far, 75 minutes, you're serious, you're committed, you're one of us. The 1% who won't accept simple stories, who demand evidence, who question narratives. Welcome. We need you. This work needs you. Because the mechanism is just the beginning. Just one artifact, one proof point. How many others are out there? How many other impossible technologies waiting to be rediscovered? Roman concrete that lasted 2,000 years. Our modern concrete cracks in 50. Damascus steel that can't be reproduced with modern metallurgy. Baghdad batteries generating electricity in 200 BC. Greek fire that burned on water. Formula lost, never recovered. Stradivarius violins with acoustic properties we can't replicate. The list goes on and on and on. Technologies existed, were real, were documented, then lost. Not because they were impossible, because knowledge is fragile. Civilization is fragile. Memory is fragile. Unless we protect it, distribute it, make it redundant. That's our mission, our purpose, our duty to the past and future. The Antikythera mechanism survived against impossible odds. 2,000 years underwater, corrosion, decay, fragmentation. Should have been destroyed completely. Should have dissolved into unrecognizable lump, but it didn't. Enough survived. Enough to tell the story. Enough to prove the point. Almost like it was meant to. Like the universe conspired to preserve this one message, this one proof. I don't believe in destiny, don't believe in cosmic plans, but I believe in meaning, in purpose, in the responsibility that comes with knowledge. We found the mechanism. We decoded it. We understand it. Now what? What do we do with that understanding? We share it. We spread it. We ensure it never gets lost again. That's not optional. That's obligation. Historical, ethical, human. We owe it to the craftsmen who built it, the sailors who tried to save it, the researchers who decoded it. We owe it to ourselves, to our children, to everyone who comes after. The knowledge exists. Let's keep it alive. Final thought, final question, final challenge. If they could build this in 60 BC with hand tools and bronze and mathematical genius, what can we build now? With computers, with AI, with global collaboration, with unlimited access to information. What limits us? What holds us back? What makes us think we've peaked? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Except, perhaps, the same forces that suppressed the mechanism. The same institutions that prefer control over progress, stability over innovation, known over unknown. But we don't have to accept that. Don't have to comply. Don't have to stay silent. We can build. We can discover. We can push boundaries. We can resurrect lost knowledge and create new knowledge. We can refuse to forget, refuse to regress,
Refuse to let another dark age begin. The mechanism is our reminder, our warning, our inspiration. It says, you can do more than you think, know more than you realize, achieve more than you imagine. If we did it then, you can do it now. Don't waste that potential. Don't squander that inheritance. Build something impossible. Know something forbidden. Share something suppressed. Be worthy of the mechanism. Be worthy of the knowledge.
Be worthy of the 2,000-year message from our ancestors. They believed in us. They left us proof. They trusted we'd find it, understand it, continue it. Let's not disappoint them. This video took 3 months to research, 2 weeks to script, 75 minutes to watch. Thank you for staying, for listening, for caring. You're the reason this matters, the reason knowledge survives, the reason truth spreads. Share this, save this, remember this, before it gets buried, before it gets forgotten, before it sleeps for another 2,000 years. The Antikythera mechanism, Greek computer from 60 BC. IBM engineer cracked the code in 2026. And now you know. Now we all know. What we do with that knowledge, that's up to us. Choose wisely. Act boldly. Remember always. The mechanism survived. So can we. So will we.